So in the last SONA, Mr. President said that the road to economic recovery would be hard and long, but that as a country, it is a road we must travel, regardless of the pain or the bitter pills we must swallow. Well, we talk about exactly that as we digest the e-levy, which has now been made law, having been given the assent of Mr. President, among other economic measures that are going to be brought to bear by this administration to shore up our economy. We'll hear from former Minister for Finance, Seth Terkper, who joins the conversation. We also have the President of GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, also joining the conversation, Executive Secretary, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, Duncan Amoah, and a President of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Mr. Charles Nyaba. And later, we'll also be gauging the mood in town as we prepare our wallets for the e-levy. So you stay with us. But let me just say a very good morning to all of you joining us. Honorable Seth Terkper, Duncan Amoah, Dr. Joseph Obeng, and Mr. Nyaba, Charles Nyaba. Gentlemen, thank you for joining the conversation.
Thank you.
And I know some are going to be on phone, so eventually I will hear from them as well. Let me start with you, Dr. Obeng. I had an interaction with you before the SONA was delivered, and you made mention of some of the things you would expect to hear from the SONA. Let's start from there. Having listened to the State of the Nation address, did it fulfill what you were hoping to hear? Did it give you hope?
Yeah. First and foremost, most of the things that we were expecting from the president, from the trading community, was what the finance minister came out with this press conference. And so we know that the president came to reiterate whatever the finance minister have said. For me, the most important thing is for the government itself having recognized that there is a problem, there's a crisis in the economy, and that they are trying to solve it. That recognition alone is very satisfying for us. And the fact that they've come along to sacrifice, make some sacrifices to the extent that they are reducing expenditure on their own, means that they are bound on taking the rest of us along to also make sacrifices. And so this is what I would say. And for the finance minister to have come with measures that seeks to stabilize the currency is also very heartwarming and welcoming. You see that with the pronouncement of the 2 billion injection into the system alone, have been able to curtail the increase in the forest, and then the city have gained some kind of strength. This is what we were seeking. And then for the Bank of Ghana's base rate to have been increased, that's where we also have a problem, because they increase it along the lines of the inflationary trends. And the inflation trends this time, the push factor has been the depreciation of the cedi. So I think the main focus should have been on the depreciation of the cedi to stabilize the currency so that it will suppress the inflation. Otherwise, they are creating another layer of burden of doing business. With regards with the e-levy, as we have all been saying, what we can say is that for the trading community, we seek expansion of the tax net. That's what, whenever we make input, that's what we have been petitioning the government to expand the tax net so that it does not put unnecessary pressure only on the import duties that we have. For that reason, we have also even petitioned the government to, for about 2 years, to tax the e-commerce, for which they have also initiated, and then now the e-commerce is being taxed, because then the online business or the e-commerce is urging the traditional business out of business.
Right.
So expanding the tax net is very important for us. But the issue here is whether the rate being charged is affordable or not. That's what we have to think about, and especially we also have to think about the double taxation aspect in it. And with the passage of this, we are going to sit down with Ghana Revenue Authority to see if whatever we will pay through our sales in the yield levy, they will be allowed to deduct it from our returns. These are the issues that we'll be thinking about.
I'll come back to you briefly later on for another quick take or swipe at the e-levy as it is now, 1.5%, its approval, and what moving forward you are hoping can be done with it, how it will impact your group and how it can be leveraged for development. But do hold for me. Let me bring in Honorable Seth Terkper as well. So for the rest of you, Honorable Seth Terkper together with Duncan Amoah and Mr. Nyaba, I'll pick your quick thoughts, a first round of thoughts, and then we'll get into the main matters after that. But let me start with Mr. Nyaba. For you, as far as peasant farming is concerned, I know it's a tricky situation, but how much hope was brought to bear from the finance minister's proposals for the economy and on the back of the SONA as well? Putting the two together, how much did you take out of that?
And then let me also thank my colleague panelists. So the day the State of the Nation was being read, we were in Kumasi. We brought all our executives from all the 16 regions to plan for the new season. So whilst we were there, we were following, and then we were passing the information to members. In fact, there is one thing that came through. Members were concerned that looking at the current state of the sector in terms of cost of production, in terms of limited availability of food items, they were actually very hopeful that they would hear government direct intervention that we're going to address some of these things. But if you follow the statement very well, you realize that much has not been said in terms of what government is going to do to cushion farming. Even if you listen to what the president said, he was talking about what they've been able to do with the planting for food and jobs, what they've been able to do in terms of renovating irrigation dams that were created by a Champon regime. We've not heard much about what the president or what the government was going to do in terms of their own initiatives, like the one place, one dam that has become so useless. So we were worried that nothing was said about that. Now, our concern is that if you look at the current state of the economy, the reason why many Ghanaians are complaining has to do with non-availability of food. And non-availability of food is due to high cost of production, which is caused by poor implementation of some of the programs under the Planting for Food and Jobs. Some of them are not within the control of government, which we admit. In terms of in the area of inputs, we realize that cost of producing fertilizer, coupled with the problems that has to do with Ukraine and Russia, impact of COVID has actually affected availability of inputs. Notwithstanding, for you to now go further and still reduce amount of investment in that area that will push farmers to be able to stay in business, I think we were not too happy about that. And then we hope that in going forward, maybe to see how best that will be addressed.
Right. So we'll get into some of these issues, especially as this is your preliminary take. But did I hear you say the one village, one dam, which has become so useless? I know irrigation is one of the things you're very passionate about. But just to clarify, has it become that useless? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so if you listen to the president, you realize that he did not even mention about the one place, one dam. which is one of his own special initiatives. He rather talked about innovation work that has been done on the Tono irrigation, on the Pong irrigation project. But these were dams that were created by a Achampong regime since 1972. So if these dams are so useful that we can go and do, and this is a project activity that has always been taking place. When we work overtime, they get filtered, so you have to put in money to distill them and then to continue. So if the president would rather focus on dams that were done by a regime in 1972 and fail to mention about his own initiative that he put so much money in there, that tells you the state of those dams. The one blade, one dam concept for us was perfect because when you go to countries like China, Israel, India, they actually develop their agriculture sector through initiatives like this. Israel, for instance, the lands are so bad that because of their ability to convert the desert and the rocky lands into irrigable areas by supplying water all year round, they're able to do their businesses. But in our case, that's not the case. Look, in previous days, by this time around, if you went to places like Nkranza, Weki, Ichiman, Edra, Intempo, by now, people had already planted their maize and they are applying the inputs. But they go there, the lands are still there because the climate has changed. When you go to the northern sector, the situation is even bad. So with the one blade, one down, we thought it was coming to address those issues. But because the implementation was so bad, nothing has been done and those dams are not being used. When you go to most of the communities where these dams are situated, they are dry. There is no single water in the dam. And no agricultural activity is taking place there. So it's an area that we still expect that the government will take a second look going forward to see how best we'll be able to correct the default, so that we'll be able to actually stay in business. Ghana Meteorological Agency sound a warning that we are likely to have limited rainfall this year, and the patterns to the varieties are going to be very, very high. So it means that what we are even experiencing is likely to be worse in this year than what we are experiencing today. And irrigation is the way to go.
Irrigation is the way to go. Do hold for me. Let me also bring in Duncan Amoah. Duncan joins the conversation as well. Mr. Amoah, a very good morning to you.
Ben, good morning to you, to my co-panelists and your viewers.
Right. And let me just say that I'll be moving on to Mr. Tekpa as well shortly. I just want some initial thoughts and then we can get into more substantive matters. Your take on the back of the SONA. We've not had an interaction in terms of energy, in terms of what has been said, just a re-echoing of what the finance minister has said. And of course, I've interacted with the likes of Senyo Hosi after this, who have spoken about plans and hopes for even more to be done in terms of decreasing fuel prices at the pumps so that, for example, the transport fare hikes will be stalled. Your quick take on the president's SONA, preliminary comments.
Well, Benjamin, quite clearly, Ghanaians have gone through a lot of rough ride lately, and expectation is that something would be done to ameliorate the suffering of these vulnerable Ghanaians. And it was our hope initially that the finance minister's announcement on steps being taken to give some respite to Ghanaians would indeed go into that word, respite. Unfortunately, it was more of cut. They were cutting back on this, their spending, especially on their own appointees. If you cut back spending on appointees, you save the kitty something, but how does that get to Benjamin? I don't know, but it doesn't really give anything much to Benjamin other than, a beautiful story being told to the ears that fuel coupons are cut and certain allowances of certain institutions are cut. If you cut them, exactly what comes to Benjamin? Those are the questions that we, the everyday people on the streets, would be asking. The state of nation, I doubt if I really came across anything really, really new that we had not probably been told of. Aside, of course, some of these figures that the president did put out, which has also generated a whole lot of controversy and, in some aspects, furore. And people are genuinely asking for basis of some of those numbers.
You're speaking, for example, about the roads, the kilometers of roads that the government says in 5 years it has covered. That's what you're referring to, right?
Exactly, Benjamin. I do think that genuinely, where you have that amount of roads constructed or that amount of roads improved, you may not even need the government to say. You would see that all around you. And that is not the case. There are quite a lot of terrible road spaces and stretches across the country. Yet you hear a lot of, strong numbers, and you wonder, is it the same country that, we all move up and down within, or these things are happening in other places that we do not have access to and cannot see? Benjamin,
a quick clarification. So before you get into your wrap for this bit, quick clarification. They have said that it includes spot improvements and so many other little bits when it comes to our roads, and not necessarily that they are all new constructions of roads. But the problem is with the word new that was used by Mr. President, because then it paints the picture that these are all new constructions. So just a bit of clarity there.
Well, Ben, what all of us are asking for in this country is improvement. We would want to see a lot of improvement in the infrastructure, social amenities, social services, and support systems. We would also want to see a situation where the cascading inflationary figures, you go to buy Ideal milk to this morning, by evening the same shop is gone up by some 10-20%. You pick an item Monday, by Friday there's some, adjustment in prices. I was reading a notice not long ago from some of the cement distributors indicating they are no longer going to be able to distribute cement now on the free basis they used to do, and that if you want the cement delivered, you now have to pay for it. These are
Right.
things that increase baseline and, cost of living for the average person. The first quarter has ended. Fortunately, our economic lives are not ended. Fortunately, the economic situation can still be improved. It will be our hope that this second quarter, whatever steps that need to be taken, especially on the forex front, the Bank of Ghana will not just pay lip service, Benjamin,
Right.
but would actually get down to work and work so hard so that the BDCs, like they have indicated earlier, once the BOG can, grant them certain forex concessions or rates that they could apply in their importation, they could work to reduce fuel by 1 Ghana cedi immediately. We are expecting to see that today. And so Ghanaians are literally on edge, awaiting some relief. Where
Right.
that relief will come from, Benjamin, we are not going to get that from the 15% on petrol. No.
Right. So
The 1 cedi might be some relief, but how soon that will come? As of this morning, the roving team are still out there checking which of the pumps have adjusted downwards.
Right.
We've not recorded one as of this very time that we're speaking. We need to
when you say your
little more
roving
pressure.
team, is that COPEX roving team? COPEX roving team.
Exactly. The team are out there monitoring to see how much fuel probably would, come down for, especially for the new window that just began.
Right.
We've not recorded a single of the OMCs reducing prices.
Okay.
Let it be put on record that Ghanaians are really expectant. We are all waiting. The high amounts we are paying for fuel is something we just cannot live with. If it has to come down, please do that immediately and don't wait for 2-3 days into, a 14-day window before these reliefs are granted. We are walking a tightrope, Benjamin.
Thank you, Duncan, for that initial submission. Let me engage now Seth Terkper, former Minister for Finance and Economic Planning. Thank you for joining us, sir.
You're welcome, and good morning to fellow panelists and also to your viewers, as others have indicated.
Right. And since we're going to go hard on the economy and matters tied to that, just to let you know that while I'm letting you deliver your initial or preliminary thoughts, I would give you ample time later to expatiate on most of the matters that you would set out now. So you just take stock of that. But I would want your initial take on the SONA. And we'll have time to talk about the e-levy. But the SONA and what it delivered, economically speaking, what did you get out of the SONA? Did it give hope? Did it excite you in any way? What is your candid reaction?
Yeah, thank you very much. My reaction, honestly, was similar to what Dr. Bain said in his introduction. A final acknowledgement from the president that there is something, wrong with the economy. And I think for me, that is welcome because now we can all apply ourselves to a discussion of an economy that, has problems. And then we can turn to the solutions that are being proposed. So that was my, initial, reaction. I can explain that later on. But the second thing is, I also heard, what I would say the normal refrain about how, they had inherited a bad economy, which has been disputed on several occasions. If you take the fact that this government within 3 years got more oil revenue than the whole of the 8 years of Maris Mahama put together within 3 years. So that itself was worrisome, but also the continuation of the fact that everything was rosy before COVID and everything, seems to be COVID. Just 2 points on that. First of all, there were problems before COVID, and we have said that on this show and on others. And no less, institution like the World Bank has told us, this fact. So I think if we do not face that reality, we would not see the annual cumulative effect of what is going on in the economy. Secondly, we heard just the cost and how we should be grateful to government for the measures that were taken. We did not hear on the revenue side that this is a government that has received over 5 billion and counting, almost 6 billion if you add in-kind support. And if you add, I traveled quite recently, the fact that travelers were subsidizing government by way of what they were paying, for tests you had to do from your destination from where you are coming from, and when you get into Ghana, you pay more, in excess of 400, 500, US dollars, even when the local one is $50. I'm saying that one would have thought that once you count the costs, which the minister and the president said were not contemplated in the budget, you must also accept that when you talk about budget, the revenue was also not contemplated. And therefore, if you want to tell us about the cost, then tell us about the revenue. Tell us about the loan, soft loan from the IMF, SDR, which is our own money. Talk about, the World Bank money that came in. Talk about Bank of Ghana's deficit financing, which in total is close to 6 billion US dollars. If you convert, even at 5, Ghana cedis, average, not 5.5. even at 6, because we are, then you're talking about 30 billion plus in a single year to resolve one crisis. And so why are we still, in this situation? So that again, I think for me, was not balanced. And it also did not, therefore, in my view, and I stand for correction in case, you heard something else. There was no positive acknowledgement of what others had done to help the country throughout its COVID crisis. And I've mentioned some of the institutions I've mentioned. I have not mentioned those who gave us free vaccines, the role of the World Health Organization, the role of, AU and others who contributed. So it sounds to me, again, one-sided as usual. My probably two other points is that in addition to the revenues that flowed in, are you aware that even in the year of COVID, 2020, we got the most oil revenue up to that point, from the 3 oil fields, right? No mention. And even as PIAC is celebrating 10 years, of oil into the economy, we did not hear a mention of how we have performed and the invaluable contribution that oil had contributed to the economy, 3 oil fields versus 1. Even when the president was comparing 2016, a single year, to a single year of crisis at 2.8, let me use a new basis, compared to the end 2020, which is also a year of crisis, of 0.4%.
Right.
And again, continue to give us the impression that everything was rosy. So these are my initial, thoughts about, the budget. E-levy, obviously, we'll be talking about.
We'll be talking about it. Let me bring back Dr. Joseph for being president of GUTA. So for your summary, your concluding comments on this matter. We spoke about the e-levy the last time, and you expressed your support for it, conditioned on a few other things. Now, if you look at the measures that have been adopted, financially speaking, some of which were expressed at the SONA, and the e-levy coming in, what are your expectations moving forward? How are you hoping these will be leveraged to help members of your union, Dr. Obeng?
Yeah. Thank you very much. When I talk about tax expansion, I was not saying I'm in support of this or against this. So let's get it right, because this thing is being discussed in emotional terms. But what I was trying to
so
say,
can you clarify for me, Dr. Obeng, from where you sit?
Yeah.
Are you in support of the e-levy or not? Where do you stand?
I've said that. Tax payment is limited to just a few of us, and that we have been petitioning government to expand the tax net, and so anything that seek to solve that for us is good, because otherwise the importing community will always be searched. That's why we always say duty is high. Whenever government want money, you come to the importers, and that's why I'm saying that even with the e-commerce thing, we propose to government that there's the need to tax them, because the online businesses are urging us out, and that if they are not taxed, those people with the traditional businesses who have the fixed address will be urged out of business. And so we want anything that will bring parity to tax payment, and that's why the e-levy is welcoming. But as to the affordability of it, the tax rate is what it will be in contention for the people, generality of Ghanaians. And that's exactly what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Okay, and I was asking, so how do you feel, like you've just said, that it may not exactly be affordable, but you're looking at the broadening of the tax net. Is this going to positively impact your union, your members, your business?
Yeah, that's why I'm also thinking through the double taxation, because then if we do some of our sales through the e-levy, it might mean that our sales is taxed are we going to be allowed those taxes to be deductible when we are filing our tax? And so this issue also have to be solved with Ghana Revenue Authority. We have to sit down with them to see how best we can do that. But otherwise, everybody trying to pay, I believe in tax expansion, but I also believe in affordability and then fairness. So if there's an element of double taxation, we should find a way that it will be sorted out when somebody is filing his tax returns and all that, so that nobody will be settled with two double tax payments. Yeah.
Dr. Obeng, we're grateful that you joined us this morning. Thank you so much, and do have a lovely day.
But sir, can I add something?
Okay, very briefly, if you can.
Yeah. But having done all these things, I think that, as we have all accepted, this is the hardest time we have to do business and also sacrifice in terms of taxes and all that. All that government will also have to assure us is value for money on some of our expenditure.
Right.
I mean, you hear that a contract has been given to MTN and it's 3 billion, the same classroom blocks and all that. The same thing when given to government will be about 1 million, 1 million Ghana cedis, where MTN will charge, will pay 300,000. So these are the leakages, the wastage in the system. They have to inspire some sort of comfort and confidence for us for tax payment. Otherwise, we are being overstretched. And because even when we are able to plug the leakages, the wastage and all that, it's also in a way enhancing on our resources. But if we do not do that and we get the money and then we overprice contracts and all that, then of course it does not also give us the hope and then the encouragement to pay or do our bit. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Obeng. Again, do have a lovely day. Let me move on to Charles Nyaba now. And you started talking about irrigation 1D1F, and you've shared your thoughts on that. But how about the e-levy? How does this hit you as the Peasant Farmers Association? What does it mean to you moving forward?
Thank you very much. Let me also say that there were other issues that the president raised.
Right.
And I think that it's fair for us to also comment on those ones if we think that they're doing well.
Right. So
for instance, the one district, one warehouse.
Right.
We have made a proposal over the years that looking at the level of post-harvest losses, which sometimes is accounted by lack of storage facility, these governments should facilitate building of warehouses, it will help. So that is a fantastic approach. Secondly, in terms of budget allocation, since 2017 to now to agriculture sector, we are seeing some drastic improvement. And just like my colleague just said, what we need to now be more concerned about is not only about the money that government is releasing to address expenditure in the sector, but also considering value for money. So that something that could be done, let's say, a million Ghana cedis is not being charged for 3 million Ghana cedis. And that's what we have also observed over the period. Now, in the area of e-levy, I think we have earlier on expressed our opinion. As long as we support government to increase investment in the agriculture sector, this comes with resources. We thought that the decision to use e-levy was going to actually take the farmers a step back in terms of encouraging them to actually be involved in the electronic transaction. You agree with me that in some few years back, farmers used to keep their money under their pillows, others on their farms. But in recent times, most of them are now involved in the e-transaction, opening bank accounts, and then doing Momo charges. Me personally, as a 6 year, I transfer money if I want people to do work on the farm for me through electronic transactions. Personally, I might not have much problem with that. But as I said in our AGM 2 days ago, even due payment from farmers to us, the farmers were raising concern that now that the e-levy has been passed, it means that their dues to the organization is going to increase. When they transact, there is going to be some charges. And others are even saying that no, then now they are not ready to also do commercial transactions. So for our agriculture sector, I think looking at our constituents, we are going to be more impacted with the e-levy. And we have indicated earlier that those who are in that sector, if they will be exempted from the electronic charges, that will help a lot.
So you want those in the agri sector to be exempt from the e-levy, or would you rather have a reduction in the levy component, maybe to about 0.5%, for example?
No, okay, even though I speak for myself and I speak for the farmers, if you look at official statements, which is coming from the farmers, they were saying that they don't even think this is the time for farmers to be included in the e-transaction. And then we always say that because of the high level of risk in the sector, very few investors are interested in investing in the agriculture sector. So we always believe that if people are committed to take the risk, they should be given some special motivation to continue to be there. Because in terms of getting resources like loans and credit, there's no investor, there's no banker who is willing to deal with the agriculture sector. With all this hullabaloo of banks committing resources to agriculture, turning their attention to agriculture, if you're in the sector, you will realize that all these are PSC. We have tried severally, but at the end result, it's only that you have to provide some kind of collateral. But this is a sector that we have vulnerable people involved. We have youth who competed through and they are going in. We have young people who have never been in any field of investment before they want to take it as a career. They are not able to get anything to start with. So we were actually expecting to see something in the area that is going to encourage people to continue to invest, because those who are already there are overstretched.
Right.
And some of them are even trying to pull up. So we think that apart from the State of the Nation address which was presented by the President, there is going to be a way, and we will continue to engage with the Ministry of Finance to come out with a special package.
Right.
That will actually encourage people to go in, and those who are in to also scale up their activity.
Dr. Charles Nyaba, we're grateful that you took the time to engage us this morning. We're immensely grateful for your time, sir, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Duncan, I'm sure you're still with us. So the e-levy is here. It's been given the assent of Mr. President. What do you make of it, and how do you feel this is going to impact the generality of us, especially on the back of the fuel price hikes and the minimal decrements that we have to bear with?
In my opening remarks, I had indicated what sort of, difficulty most of us had to face in the first quarter due to rising cost of fuel, which also had another effect, cascading effect on inflationary figures, transport fares, and all of them. The biggest challenge that most will have to probably grapple with in the second quarter would now have to be adjusting to this new e-levy bit, also together with the uncertainty surrounding, petrol pricing, as to whether indeed we're going to see the cedi stabilize for this quarter, in order to give some respite to the petroleum importers altogether, in order that you and I do not even wake up and the pumps have rather gone up instead of coming down. It's quite an uncertain terrain, but the introduction or addition of the e-levy is most likely going to compound the difficulties we saw in quarter one. Some have said it is avoidable and you could live without it, but for quite a good number of Ghanaians whose relatives live in other regions other than where they probably work or apply their trade, you cannot avoid the mobile money platform. And so some amount of money would invariably be going out of your wallet as far as government needing money. We would want to see the government do a lot better in Q2 than what we saw in Q1. If Q1 should repeat itself in Q2 with the introduction of e-levy, Benjamin, it will be quite difficult to see how we would all be able to scale through. But that also leaves, some room for the finance ministry to sit up and work. Bank of Ghana to sit up and ensure that the forex bit doesn't get as bad as we saw get done in Q1. And I'm sure the oil marketing companies, the BDCs, the regulators, NPA, and others would also sit up and ensure that fuel prices do not become another burden in Q2.
Right.
That is all we keep praying against, Benjamin.
Right.
Anything other than this, our woes would simply be compounded. There's a lot more work to be done, and it is our hope that this new quarter would see authorities fold their sleeves and get to work with a view to reducing the economic hardship that we all had to grapple with in Q1.
Duncan, very grateful that you've taken the time to join us. And when there are any changes, hopefully when they do come to bear, we'll reach out to you as well to find out what your take is on that. Duncan Amoah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's use the rest of the time now to focus on the e-levy and other matters of economic context concern with someone who has been there before, Seth Terkper. You're still with us. So what is your appreciation of the e-levy now that it has been passed? No longer at 1.75%, at 1.5%. If you have any thoughts on what transpired in Parliament recently when the bill was given approval, you can share that before you get into the e-levy proper and what it means now that it's been given presidential assent.
Thank you very much. I think I was quite educated, on the legal processes from Parliament to the Supreme Court, by your previous, hosts, the lawyer before the session.
Lawyer Bobby Banton, right.
Yes, indeed, yes. So I listened, on TV, and I was quite educated in terms of the processes and, what, the role of the legislature and the Supreme Court. So I think there's that balance, and I think he did justice, to the subject matter. So turning to e-levy, as a concept, let me say that my fundamental positions, unfortunately, have not changed. And if I may just, go through, some of the concerns, quickly, which I've expressed in the past. In the first place, e-levy is totally factored in the budget already. In fact, of the 100.5 billion that government is expecting to raise, and we may want to look at, the taking the SONA and the minister's statement together later. This year is supposed to bring 6.9, or let's say 7 billion. Before we determine, so it's part of the determination of the deficit, which is leading to the borrowing and the debt situation. So it's been factored. The impression that it is something new and would have some major change is neither here nor there. And to give you specific numbers again, the deficit we are looking at is 47 billion. And because, certain deductions were made, some of us put the deficit at 43 billion. There was a 5 billion offset, which was, so we put it at 43 billion. 7 billion, you can see, even in terms of the deficit alone, and in terms of the 100 billion, it's not significant. It's not making any significant difference. Then in 2023, e-levy is projected expected to bring 7.8 billion, let's say 8 billion. So from 7, it goes up to 8 billion. And we still have a deficit of 5.5, but if you do certain adjustments again, let me say that the medium term has not impressed the markets, and so let me not even be going, there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having, the downgrades and the rest, because these downgrades look at your program for the future. Then in 2024, it is bringing in 8.9. That is another billion is added. You can see 7, 8, now 9, and then in 2025, 10.08 or 10 billion. So there is a progressive increase of 1 billion every year, which is already factored not just in the budget, but the current year budget, then in the medium term. And it's this medium term that is not impressing anybody, So the point we are saying is, what significant difference will it make? I see it as an expedient move, to generate some revenue in the first quarter, which has passed, which is normally slow in terms of revenue generation, in order that it can help in payment of urgent expenditure. That is the most significant point that I see. Secondly, I have said that e-levy is fundamentally unfair and it's regressive. Fundamentally unfair, because it differentiates between who is using what form of payment and what that form of payment, should be taxed.
Right.
And let me give you a very good example from, my previous, panelists, especially when it came to, the peasant farmers. You saw the concern. Farmers have started putting their money from under their pillow and elsewhere onto, which is safer, onto mobile phones. Even if it's stolen, you can be sure that maybe, it will be blocked unless, you display your PIN and other things, So we are seeing progress in terms of electronic means, digitalization, which is helping in this regard. But quite apart from the concern that's, it might have on it, if I use that phone to buy fertilizer, if I use that phone to buy any input, I'll be taxed. Whereas if my colleague farmer who didn't bother to put, phone, went to buy the same fertilizer, he paid cash at the point, he will not be paying e-levy. That's a discrimination. Where you keep your money matters. And even if both of us had our money in the bank, I could go to the bank, get the banker's draft and use it to make the payment, assuming the bank would not accept my own check, compared to somebody who has it. And these days, it's all over. You can just press your phone. Similar to Mr. Duncan Namwa, there are filling stations which are progressing and they are using, the same technology. So I don't have to even carry cash. So long as they have, the symbol, I forget it, and you touch it, it takes the money, out. This is the progress we're making. Now it makes a difference whether I stop and I take my leather wallet from my pocket and I make the payment, or somebody goes to the shop or goes to the filling station and is using, the phone to make the payment.
And that
One
point,
person will be taxed.
right, that point you make is crucial, because then people are going to try to not evade, but avoid the levy. And of course, you know better than I do.
Because people
the
are
differences,
rational.
exactly.
As we are taught, people are rational as we are taught.
Exactly.
And so they are going to, yes.
We're all rational consumers. So I just wanted to look at it from this perspective. When you look at the billion per year incremental value that we're hoping or projecting to get, is it practical? Because even on the back of our interactions with people yesterday, some people are already beginning to withdraw their money from their mobile money wallets, even when the e-levy hasn't kicked in. There's the bit about a 1 month window for education, which some say would not suffice in the first place. So when you look at this pot of issues and put that side by side with the fact that government is also collateralizing the money to raise bonds, hoping in anticipation of securing what it will from the e-levy, Do you think we are going to make the projected figures? Not even in the future. Forget about the future. Now, in 2022, will we meet them?
Yeah, we may not now, and we may not in the future. Unless, of course, and let's give some credit to GRA and others who advise the Ministry of Finance. They normally would have models that would tell you that this tax measure could result in this or that. That's what they are trained to do. And that's what most tax experts will caution. So it takes time, just as a concern which I heard again on your network yesterday, by the Chamber of Telecom,
right,
pointing to the fact that it takes time for big organizations like MTN to recalibrate their electronic systems to collect the tax. Because you are dealing with IT, you're dealing with something which is programming, and if you are not careful, it might just mess up, the whole, billing, electronic billing system that they have. So it's not just, from the consumer side or from the government side, but, even from business side. So we are now bringing in some of the very practical, issues regarding the tax, which we have been talking about. But let me also point out that if collateralization were going to be any solution, we wouldn't be where we are today. Remember, ESLA, when it comes to ESLA, the energy sector levy and the enhanced road levy were quantified, and they were to be paid over a period of 3 to 5 years, which was a condition that the Ministry of Finance had to meet when it went to Parliament, gave those numbers. The amount was collateralized. Today we are told, and it's not been disputed, that the energy sector levy, is about $12 billion US. And the president again acknowledged, that this was going to be restructured, except that he mentioned again that this was inherited without mentioning the fact that ESLA, was to have covered it. And I'm saying this on authority because, in January, the Minister for Finance and the Vice President said in Washington, D.C. that they had the money assuring, the World Bank. Remember, we're doing the energy, the whole energy policy with the World Bank. That, yes, the money was intact and it was going to settle the IPP debt and others, which was worsened by the PDS, saga, and we are in that situation. So if collateralization were any solution, we would have seen a lot more. From GET Fund. Remember, GET Fund has also been collateralized, ESLA collateralized.
Right.
So many things collateralized. So what is so magical about collateralization, which is what we're going to do with the Japan anyway, And then let me also point out that what is magical about levies, if you look at the plethora of levies that we have on the books today, they are quite significant. Several of them. If you have the e-transactions levy, you have the COVID health levy, you have, ESLA, and so many of them. Later we can go through them. So we have seen so many levies, already, being imposed by this government, in addition to the capping. Fiscal cleanup levy,
right?
National Fiscal Stabilization Levy, which was a carryover from 2015 and should have gone away. Then you do have, as you come down, the ESLA levies and the baby ESLA levies.
So it is clear.
Energy debt recovery, public lighting levy.
Right.
All these are being retained. Sanitation and pollution levy. So.
And these are, pardon the interjection, we're pressed for time. We have just about a minute to go. These are levies that it is clear we have on our books, and people have complained time and again about them. But I want to find out from you, on the back of COVID-19, like you mentioned in your earlier submission, we had quite a bit of money coming to us, as estimated, 33 billion Ghana cedis. When you factor in what has been spent on COVID-19 and the fact that we have to go the way of the e-levy to shore up our economy, is there any disparity in there? Should we be asking for more, really, on the back of what we've got from COVID-19 as a windfall, so to speak, in about a minute, if you can manage that?
Thank you very much. That's the point we've been making always. And it tells you that there was crisis before we went into 2020. Otherwise, this amount was more than enough, far more than enough to have resolved the COVID, crisis, including even the Omicron, saga that came in. And this is in the government's own disclosure to the IMF. And I mentioned these references. You may want to go back to them again. The Article 4, 2019, disclosed a gap. And it gave the cost of COVID. The cost of COVID, which the government gave, was supposed to be 3% of GDP. This amount is far in excess of that. So I'm afraid we do have problems which has caught up with us. And I would ask for in closing where I started, that let's be candid that we had problems before. Let's not pretend that the economy was rosy back then, so we can face the situation. And then let us have very concrete. We lack time, but our revenue projection is high. GRA, to give just one example, GRA did only, if you take Bank of Ghana figures, they ended the year with 67. They didn't even meet the 70 probable actual in the budget, let alone 52. And then you're supposed to be doubling this amount and earning 100. It's impossible. So we need far more, measures. And mind you, it includes the E-level.
Well, it's a conversation that we're definitely going to continue having. But thank you so much, Seth Terkper, for joining the conversation. Former Minister for Finance and Economic Planning. Thank you so much, sir. As we wrap, let me say a happy birthday to a bosom friend of mine, Thelma Obimpe. Today is that big day. Happy birthday to you. God bless you in all your endeavors. And for those of you who like what you're looking at, my shirt is by kind courtesy of Catherine Gordon of Catherine Garments. Locate them at Medina New Road near the Rolling Circle. You can call 0277 580050 on social media. Catherine_Garments on Instagram and Catherine Garments GH on Facebook. Now, did you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and the creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay any income tax on these activities for their first 5 years of operation. A young entrepreneur engaged in business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. Here's the breakdown. Accra and Tema, 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, 12.5%. Outside the other regional capitals, 10%. And in the 3 northern regions, 5%. I'm sure you want further clarity. You can get that from your nearest GRA office. Ghana Revenue Authority, integrity, fairness, and service. And on that note of serving you, we wrap the AM show this morning. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. Do stay for our major bulletins at 10 and at noon. Let's reconnect on Monday. Great day.